through there?
Good evening. I'll call the meeting of the Common Council to order, and Tammy will call roll this evening.
Bartlett,
Here.
Hirsch,
Here.
Kittleson, Swadley,
Here.
Boersma,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Reeves.
Here.
Majewski is absent and excused. Engelberger,
Here.
Jensen,
Here.
Truel,
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
And I would assume.
Kittleson is also absent and
Yes.
excused.
Thank
Yes.
you. We have 10 aldermen present.
Thank you very much. We'll begin this evening with communications from alderpersons. Do we have communications from alderpersons? And I'm looking right at Alderperson Hirsch to get an update about Earth Day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would like to thank the city, the Parks Department, both the Public Works and the Park and Rec, and WPPI and the utilities for having a great booth. We had a fantastic Earth Day celebration. Sid and I were just talking, we probably had 400 to 500 people come through. The vendors were happy. It was just a fantastic community event that I'd like to, again, thank the second graders and for submitting art to decorate the area, and the seventh graders for their poetry that we had on display, the local bands. I mean, it was just a fun-filled night, and I thank all the elders for making time out of their day to come and visit as well. So thanks.
Great. Thank you. Further communications from our alderpersons. I'm sorry, Council President Swadley.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. I just want to let the council know that I did receive communication from the school district today from Scott Dirks, and basically he's asking if we would be interested in having future joint meetings. So I guess I would ask that we put that on as a future agenda item for us to discuss.
All right, thank you. I was going to also brag about the school district. We have, as you're all aware, of course I can brag, one of the best school districts around. Today our school district received a $25,000 grant from WEDC, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, and that $25,000 goes toward a fab lab at our middle school. You all know about the fab lab at the high school. Well, this $25,000 starts one at the middle school as well. These are one of the things, and I'll hand it around, that the students make at the fab lab, and it's a box, but it has no nails. They have the dinosaur, they had a chair, they had all sorts of things that they make out of their 3D printer. This allows students at that earlier age to start doing that at the middle school fab lab. We have a 3D printer at our youth center. The one that they'll have at the high school is at the middle school, just that next step up. And then, of course, the really awesome one at the high school. One of 21 schools in the state of Wisconsin that received that grant today. So a big deal on behalf of the Stoughton schools. MedDrop, medication disposal, and the Sharps collection event is this Saturday from 9 till 11 at the Stoughton Fire Station. It's a drive-through, so if you've not been there before, just drive through the beginning of the fire station, drop off your unused medications or your used Sharps, and right on out the back. Smooth, and a great initiative by our Wellness Coalition. Has anyone walked across Main Street in front of City Hall on 5th Street lately? We have the most awesome pedestrian crossing sign there, just like the ones out on West Main Street where you push the button and the lights flash and then all the traffic stops. A brand new one was placed right in front of City Hall within the last week. A second one will go at East Side Quick Trip so that everyone on the east side can cross safely back and forth from Quick Trip to the other side of Main Street. Great initiative by our police chief, police department, as well as the Public Works Department. So thank you, Chief, for writing the grant, another great grant. And now we have proclamations. And we'll start out with a proclamation on behalf of Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling North proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees. Whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska and is now observed throughout the nation and the world. Whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. Whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. Whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of our business areas, beautify our community, and are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Whereas Stoughton has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation for the 23rd consecutive year and desires to continue its tree planting ways. And Stoughton is observing Arbor Day by planting 9 trees in Beyond Park and distributing 300 tree seedlings to the 4th grade classrooms throughout the elementary schools in Stoughton. The Tree Commission is also renewing its membership with Wisconsin Urban Wood, which will be using Stoughton's tree recycling program as a model for 4 different states. Now therefore, I, Donna Olson, Mayor of the City of Stoughton, do hereby proclaim April 28, 2017 as Arbor Day in the City of Stoughton, and I urge all citizens to support efforts to care for our trees and woodlands and to support our city's community forestry program. Therefore, further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations. That's our Arbor Day proclamation. This week is also Volunteer Appreciation Week. We had probably between 40 and 50 people at City Hall this afternoon celebrating our volunteers in our community. So it's an award that goes out every year during Volunteer Week. I'll read the proclamation and then let you know about all of our great recipients. Whereas Stoughton is a community known for the dedication and commitments of its citizens, whereas over the years our community has benefited from countless volunteers and extraordinary business owners providing time, energy, and helping hands. Whereas volunteer efforts have kept our food pantry stocked, delivered meals to our homebound, and fundraised money to provide assistance when needed. Whereas Stoughton has been the beneficiary of many volunteer projects, such as the Opera House restoration, youth center projects, hospital expansion, and numerous park projects, to name only a few. Whereas day to day, we see volunteerism becoming more and more contagious. Whereas volunteerism provides to be full circle, as those who receive are grateful, those who volunteer are humble, and those in our community are thankful. Whereas National Volunteer Week reflects the power that volunteers and extraordinary business owners have to inspire by example. Volunteers both encourage those they help and motivate others to serve. Our volunteers of the year are John Weitzel. John has done some wonderful work in our park trails. He will go ahead and clear up the trails, the underbrush, and do all that work all on his own, kind of like magic. And then he'll call the Public Works Department and say, "There's a whole pile of brush here if you want to go pick it up." So he saves countless hours for our Public Works Department. The others are the veterans of the Memorial Park Steering Committee. They told me today that the Eagle for Veterans Park, the Eagle has landed. The Eagle is finally here. They anticipate the rest of the park being done by September of this year. So those on the Memorial Park Steering Committee are Dwayne Broughton, Jim Oler, Vic Duzel, Rick Cumlin, Bud Erickson, Sonny Swanstu, Roger Clevin, Roger Nitchie, David Stolen, Randy Robertson, and Dennis Durkee. Businesses of the Year were given to Cummins Foundation, and we all know the great work that they've done in recycling our ash trees that have been affected by the emerald ash borer, as well as Moyers Incorporated, represented by Jeff Moyer. They've done some wonderful things at Rotary Park and continue to do so there. Friend of Youth this year. This is a person who's always chosen by our Youth Center Director and Parks and Rec Director Tom Lynch. Our Friend of Youth is Nick Kashalik. And Nick started out as a kid who went to the Youth Center through the middle school and through the high school. He's all grown up now and has his own business, and he comes back and volunteers at the Youth Center. He donated a basketball hoop and helped get that established, as well as $2,000. So he spends a lot of time at our Youth Center, and we're honored to have these folks as wonderful volunteers. So let's give them all a round of applause if we could. Thank you. Phew. Now that I'm done talking, we need to hear, this is also our public comment period is next on the agenda. We need to let you know that Clerk Kropp is home not feeling well tonight. So we apologize, there aren't the forms that we usually fill out in the hallway for public comment. Simply raise your hand, excuse me, I'll call on you. Come to the podium and give us your name and your address, and then feel free to speak. You have 3 minutes to speak, and Tammy will keep track and let you know when your time is coming close to the end. Is there anyone here wishing to speak at the public comment? We'll start with Richard. Excuse me.
Hello, I'm Richard McDonald, Director of the Stoughton Public Library, and I live at 524 Kings Lynn. And I'd like to say a few words tonight in support of Agenda Item 13, Resolution 60-2017, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve the appointment and hiring of the City of Stoughton's IT/Media Information Technology Director. At the library, even though we receive the bulk of our IT support from the South Central Library System tech people, we receive a little bit from the city, and that little bit is absolutely essential to what we do. We receive support from the city for our phone system, our security cameras, and our digital display screen. And we can operate without the digital display screen, and we did for many years, of course, but without the phone system, we'd be in trouble. And the same with the security cameras, we've come to depend on those. And also, we rely on city IT help to let us connect to the city network, because we have library security versus city security in the IT world, and it's hard to make them work together. But, so that's a challenge too. So I just wanted to say a few words in support of that. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Gregory Lee, 103 Middle Street, just speaking in support of 63, the Fair Housing and Homeless Housing Initiative. I do believe that is important. People don't think that homelessness exists in Stoughton. There are a few examples, but there's more importantly a churning sort of rental and low-income population that often finds themselves temporary homeless. And I think that would be a start of a good solution for housing for those people. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others here wishing to speak at the public comment? We'll have a public hearing regarding the sidewalk and special assessments in just a moment. All right, thank you. Our consent agenda this evening consists of the April 11th council minutes and Resolution 62 of 2017, which is requesting your confirmation of my appointment of Paul Lawrence to the Stoughton Tree Commission. I would entertain a motion to approve. Alderperson Hirsch.
Actually, I would like to separate out number B and put it down into new business
Okay.
so we can discuss it.
Sure.
All
Okay,
right.
then, yes.
I would move for
Alderperson Boersma.
approval of the April 11th council minutes.
Second.
Motion by Boersma, second by Truill. Comments or discussion regarding the council minutes of April 11th? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. Our public hearing begins, and we have a public hearing this evening to consider special assessments for sidewalks, driveways, aprons, excuse me, carriage walks, and curb and gutter for the following projects. 2017 street and utility construction project that includes work on Henry Street, Main Street to Ridge Street, Park Street, Lynn to Academy, Manila Street, Brixton to Fortin, and Brixton Street, Page to Yahara, to the Yahara River, Harrison Street, Hamilton Street to Main Street, and Division Street, Washington Street to 233 North Division Street. I'll close the council meeting and open a public hearing. Those wishing to speak, if you would just approach the podium, give us your name, address, and then share with us your thoughts.
Once again, I was hoping somebody else would go first, but okay. Gregory Lee, 103 Manila Street. Just approaching the council again on an issue, and I'll probably approach Rodney later this week. Looking over the plans for the Manila Street and Brixton Street improvements. By the way, do we get a guarantee this won't happen again for 20 years? We've had a lot of churn down there, as you know. Be exciting to...
No guarantees.
In any case, in 2014, you'll recall that my wife had applied for a retaining wall on Brixton Street. The Planning Commission had recommended that 3-0, and in those meetings had stated that there'd be no point in putting a sidewalk on that little stub of Brixton Street. Of course, that didn't pass in council. Though the current plan does show plans to put in, and it says a replacement sidewalk and driveway apron along Brixton on the edge of my property. However, there's currently no sidewalk. Just to remind everybody what this looks like, that is a downhill slope, goes to the river. There is one property to the side that is served by the sidewalk across the street on the north side of Brixton. That sidewalk will be rebuilt. To put a sidewalk there would not only be technically incredible because there's a 4.5-foot drop from the corner down to street level, but also in the interim time, we have actually installed a huge rain garden. And that has made an incredible difference as far as retaining runoff water down the streets and sidewalks in the winter and spring, which has actually solved a problem for our neighbor. There used to be ice damming down at 200 Brixton every spring, and our rain garden has actually absorbed that water and prevented the giant ice mess that used to exist down at the bottom of Brixton. So I'm just stating once again that there's no point in putting a sidewalk or driveway apron in there. We don't want it. We don't need it. We actually are enjoying preventing some of the runoff problem. So if there's any way that we can not have that not happen, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Who's the contractor?
I'm sorry, if you'd come up to the podium, your name and address, please?
Karen Galing, 145-137-2325 Academy Street. I own several homes, so.
Okay.
The general contractor is Forest Landscaping.
Do we have like bids?
Yeah, work's actually begun on some of the streets already. That's correct.
And do the residents get to see the bids?
Bids are all public. You're welcome to see the bids.
Where are
certainly.
they?
At City Hall. You're welcome to stop in and see me or arrange an appointment. Is there some specific
I'm just
issue?
questioning about, well, you know, bids
We
are
had-
bids.
Well, we had, I think it was five bidders that were, five bidders, I believe, submitted bids on this.
Okay.
City Council evaluated them and awarded the contract to the lowest responsible bidder.
The lowest?
That's the standard. That's correct.
Thank you. Others wishing to speak at the public hearing tonight?
Hi, my name is Connie Rigdon. I live at 200 South Harrison Street. I'm the property owner for that property. And I am grateful that you're not going to limit me to 3 minutes because I've been timing myself at home and I know it's more than 3 minutes. The first thing I want to say is that I appreciate the opportunity to voice my concerns this evening. I have 2 topics that I'd like to talk to you about related to specifically my property and this process. And I ask for your thoughtful consideration regarding my concerns and recommendations. So I'm not only going to talk to you about my concerns, but I'm going to propose from my end what might be suitable remedy or what might be recommendations. If by chance you need to cut this off and I'm talking too long, I would ask that the committee accept my written document that I'm reading from so that there's further review if you have questions. My first topic of concern is the cost for improvements to the public and or city property that have been shifted to me, the homeowner. The estimates in the letter sent to me dated March 13th suggest that the city's cost to update the water and sewer line up to my property line will cost the city approximately $763. However, the cost incurred to me will be $2,004. Based on the information in the letter, it appears that as the homeowner, I will be financially responsible for 72% of what I assume are contracted costs for the improvements to public services, while the city is financially responsible for only 28% of these contracted costs. I would suggest to you, as city leaders and fellow citizens, that this is not an equitable arrangement from the perspective of the homeowner. I also am aware that some of our surrounding communities do not impose this same level of financial burden on the individual homeowner related to the cost sharing of improvements to city property that could be maintained through taxes. Please understand that my use of the term financial burden is not intended to imply the severe financial hardship as defined in the section of 2-646 in our city ordinances. It might be of interest to clarify that in my particular case, over 50% of the estimate related to my property involves installation of a concrete apron, which is not quite an accurate statement because I have a concrete apron. Apparently, the cost for deconstruction of the current apron and reconstruction are going to be entirely my responsibility, even though the current apron is in good condition. My recommendation related to this concern is that the city assume financial responsibility for the cost of the driveway apron. Everybody take a deep breath. That's not the end of the sentence. And for properties that have an existing concrete apron in good condition that is in compliance with codes that must be demolished and replaced due to construction required by the city for improvement of city functions. I am under the impression from the open house meeting held on February 1st that the city assumes the cost for sidewalk removal and replacement if and when the existing sidewalk squares are in good condition and do not present a safety concern for citizens. I ask that the policy related to driveway aprons be consistent with the policy for sidewalks. My second topic is a process issue, and that is communication between the city, its representatives, and the individual homeowner. The current process, as I perceive it to date, does not foster a perception of respect for the financial implications to the homeowner, nor the satisfaction in the process, and does not promote buy-in from the homeowner as needed for improvements for the benefit of the community. As a result, I suspect this group sits through many public hearings with disgruntled homeowners on topics such as this. I ask that you consider the development of communication strategies that could change the nature of the relationship between the city and the homeowner in times of chaos or change or conflict. These are my recommendations. I think there's 4 of them altogether. The first one is provide homeowners more lead time, meaning advance notice. It is my sincere hope that there is a longer-term planning strategy for these type of projects within the city than the timeline that I have experienced to date. If there are longer-term plans for which areas of the city will be affected next, I propose that these homeowners be given advance notice. My recommendation is that homeowners who will be affected by water and sewer work next summer in 2018 be notified this summer in 2017. I would encourage a meeting with the homeowners sooner rather than later, and a letter with estimated issues and costs for the property to be sent this year, which would likely help homeowners to adjust personal budgets for the upcoming year to support payments on their terms and decreased additional financing responsibilities for the city for those homeowners who end up with amounts that are going to require some additional financing. General calculations related to the estimated cost could be provided well in advance of any finalized contracts, if noted in the letter that estimates are based on averages from previous years. Second recommendation is increased clarity and transparency in written communications with the homeowner. Please be clear about the intent of the meetings. I have to tell you, I am a little offended by the initial contact that I got that said, gee, come to an open house and hear what we're going to do this year about our streets. When you get there and you say, like, holy, you know what, they're talking about ripping up my street. I didn't get most of us in the room did not get the gist of it till we were there in the room. And we went back to talk to our neighbors and said, did you have any clue what this was about? And they said, no, tell me, what did you learn? I'm just saying, call it what it is. Please be transparent about the cost to work being done by the allocation of costs to homeowners versus funding coming from taxes. Again, my assumption is this estimate I got is related to the cost between contracted services, and that there are probably other hidden fundings, hidden taxes in there. But from the letter that I get, it makes me look like I'm carrying the burden of this project. Please be clear about the proposed timeline. Please be sensitive to language and documents sent to the homeowner. The use of term intention to exercise police power, no intention, no, I don't mean to offend you in any way, sir. The intention to exercise police power pursuant to section 66.0703 in a document sent to a homeowner is a little ominous. I mean, it makes you wonder what exactly is going on. Third recommendation, please be transparent regarding decisions making, who's doing the decision making, and take accountability for decisions made. It is not clear to me who is responsible and accountable for the decisions related to the charges to be leveled to the homeowner. All I'm asking is that it would be nice to know the accountable people and talk to the accountable people to understand why we're in this situation where this amount of money needs to be levied against the taxpayers when I know for a fact that other communities don't do that same levy. Third one. Oh, I'm sorry, we're on to the fourth one. Perhaps the development of a small work group comprised of homeowners from the area under improvement this year and potentially next year, and their aldermen could draft some recommendations to be brought before the appropriate committees for consideration in an effort to increase communication and cooperation. Again, I thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm happy to submit my comments for your review if you'd like to see them in writing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Others wishing to speak at our public hearing? Welcome.
Jessica Hartman, 103 North Division Street. I had a couple of questions as well. One of them being how far up the driveway you were planning to actually cut in, as I would agree, I have the same issue she does. I already have a concrete apron in perfect condition. I'm curious why you would need to destroy something that's already perfect, or that's in good condition, why it needs to be changed, and why I'm being assessed a large amount on that. Also, I also had a question regarding, I was not able to attend the meeting. I was actually out of the country for the very first planning meeting, but I was indicated that I have a circle piece that is inside of where, I guess, I live on a corner. And inside of, between my house and the sidewalk, there is a circle area, and that they are planning to take that out. I'm curious as to why that would be taken out, why that would need to be removed. It's a concrete block circle area. So I'm curious as to why that needs to be taken out when there is a distance between that and the sidewalk, especially if we're not doing any corrections per my estimate to my sidewalk whatsoever. So those would be the questions that I have.
Great, thank you. Planning Director Shield will connect with you if you want to be sure he has your contact information. Thank you. Are there others that would wish to speak at the public hearing at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to, Karen Galing, 145 Fortin Street. Where do we ever have to agree that we're going to be charged 2%? Is that in some sort of, where do we agree to that as homeowners when you assess us money to be paid? Where did we agree as homeowners after we pay taxes that we have to pay 2% interest? To charge somebody interest in a legal thing, you have either you're a contracted, you either are a consumer and then you sign off when you get a credit card and you agree to pay an interest. Where did we as homeowners agree to pay 2% interest for them to assess us? I know it's not a lot of money, but we never agree. Where did we agree to pay that? Interest is only assessed on a legal basis if you're a consumer and you sign a contract when you hire a lawyer. Or if you're a consumer and you sign up for a credit card, you say, I'll pay 18% interest. Where did we sign up for paying 2% of your debt?
Karen, if you could give us your contact information as well, then we can follow up with you. That'd be great. And I'm going to ask Alderperson Johnson, I know that you had dropped off your papers. If we could scan that in and send it to all the alders so that we all have that, that'd be great. Thank you. Are there others that would wish to speak at the public comment period?
Good evening, Renzo Vaccaro, 103 North Division. My main question is about the estimates. If some of these gutters that are claimed to have problems, they look in perfect conditions, how was this assessed? Why? These letters that we got don't have a proper explanation of that. If we can have a little more information about it, will be perfect. So that way we can have a better understanding of what we're dealing with.
Great. Thank you. I don't have the answers, but we'll get them for you. Again, get us your contact information so that we can get in touch with you, please.
Okay.
Hi, Martin Vaggi, 145 Fortin.
I'm sorry, Martin, could you give us your last name?
Vaggi,
Thank you.
V-A-A-G-E.
Yep.
I was just wondering if they're widening the street, because then that would make sense why you'd have to redo the approach. Same thing, our approach is in good shape. And if they're not widening the street, can they, hopefully leave it intact? And the gutters, half of them are good shape, the other half ain't. And the sidewalk, I can understand that. And we have a lead pipe also, and we're hoping to get that replaced during this work also. And just want to keep our approach as we can, but if they're widening the street, I can understand that.
Okay, thank you. Again, get us your contact so we can follow up with you for your specific details. And Brian with you, Stoughton Utilities, would talk to you about that lead pipe.
All right, thanks.
And I think Tammy's going to get some papers out there so folks can give us their contact information. And if I'm seeing no more wishing to speak at the public hearing, I'll let Tammy go ahead and distribute that.
Your Honor.
Well, let me go ahead, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and reopen council for the regular course of business. Alderperson Johnson.
I have a question on the procedure. They had a lot of questions, and then Rodney's going to get back to them, right? But I would like to know some of the answers that they asked. So does he give it back to all of us, or just?
I can give you some of them now.
Okay, sure, thank you. Yep, that'd be good. Thanks, Rodney.
All of these streets are slated for total reconstruction. These aren't overlay projects. There's utility work that's associated with them. The physical horizontal distance of the street width is remaining the same. However, the vertical position of the curb in many locations is changing, causing the need to redo the entire curb and gutter in all these streets. The associated aprons are considered under our ordinances as private infrastructure in the public right-of-way. They're slated for replacement because the adjustment to the curb elevation affects that, and the drainage patterns of those areas will be affected. The ordinances outline that curb and gutter and sidewalk is replaced at 50% of the owner's expense, and that's delineated in the numbers that have been provided to folks. Concrete aprons, as well as carriage walks, the circular area I think you're describing between the curb and the sidewalk is in our ordinances called a carriage walk. Those are assessed at 100%. The question about the assessment, the 2% is only imposed if you don't pay your invoice at the time of invoicing. Invoices go out after the project's completed. The materials outlined allow you the opportunity to make the full payment at your discretion. If you so desire to extend it over a period of time, it outlines the need to pay for that with an interest rate applied. Let me go through my notes here. Communications. We can always improve on that. I think we've made strides, and we're looking at even making more improvements for next year. We're in the process of coordinating the projects, beginning to put in place the engineering contracts for 2018 projects. That will allow us to have the open house and information with the public much sooner. We sent out a public information notice about an open house in February. February 1st was the open house date. All the council members were also invited, and my contact information was included on it. Every piece of correspondence that went out from my office had my name and my number on it. A number of people have reached out and talked about specific issues. So I've been available. There may be some in the room that have actually taken me up on that and either called or come in to meet me on specific issues. A number of areas there was concerns about trees. Those have been being worked out with the tree folks. Public Works Committee has looked at these plans as well and worked through the approval process of the plans. The estimates and the documents in front of you represent the ordinance provisions or the ordinance prescribed allocation of cost to the property owners. The reference to water and sewer costs, are through Stoughton Utilities, and those are not included. That shouldn't be happening. Sorry about that. But the water and sanitary sewer issues, if there are any, I know Stoughton Utilities is trying to work with, and you can speak to this, Brian, but I know Stoughton Utilities is certainly trying to communicate with properties that have potential lead services to address the potential change of that service to a copper service. This project in those areas, I believe we're replacing all of the water services from the main to the property line with copper. And I think the communications that might have been referenced in the past or in the meeting were to alert the property owners of the potential desire to have you look at your own property to see if you want to do that at the same time for the rest of the way into your house. So there are some utility correspondences that went out. I'd encourage you to use the contact information on those pieces of documentation to reach out about those specific topics.
Thank you. Great segue. I was going to ask the council's permission to go ahead and move Resolution 61, which deals with our, exactly what our public hearing was about. If we could move that to discuss now at the beginning of new business. There is no old business tonight. That way we can continue this discussion while the folks are still here. I'm seeing heads nod, so I'll take that as a okay, let's go ahead. Let's move to agenda item 10, Resolution 61 of 2017. This comes from our Finance Committee. Alderperson O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 61, 2017, authorizing improvements and levying special assessments against benefited property in the City of Stoughton for the improvement of curb and gutter, retaining walls, sidewalks, driveways, aprons, carriage walks, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and water system improvements for the 2017 street and utility construction project. Preliminary resolution, Resolution 8, 2017, was approved by Finance Committee 4-0 and the Common Council 12-0, and I so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by O'Connor, second by Engelberger. Alderperson O'Connor, or I guess we can open it up for comments and discussion. Would you like to begin, Alderperson O'Connor?
No, I think Rodney, if you want to.
He already did. He did a great job.
You know, this discussion occurs every year about the assessment procedure. And until the ordinances are changed, they reflect the outlined estimated costs or costs outlined in this resolution represent what the ordinances still indicate. Additionally, every year the City Council looks at the capital improvement planning and the budgeting for these projects. Inherent in that is a portion of that is special assessed costs that go to fund these projects. So there is recognition of this issue. It has not been changed. The allocation has been in place for at least 20 years, but it's something the council can change if they want to in the future. Right now, the ordinances prescribe this approach.
Thank you. Alderperson Boersma.
Thank you, Your Honor. In the last part of that sentence, it delineates the water system improvements for the 2017 street and utility project. And if Brian could just address that, what are the water system improvements that you're talking about at this point?
Sure. In most project areas, we're replacing the sanitary sewer as well as the water main. We extend new water services from the main to the curb stop. That's the utility's responsibility. We're replacing all of our lead services for the portion that we maintain the responsibility for. We're encouraging the homeowners who have lead services to replace their portion as well. Their costs may be lower at this time due to the ongoing construction. However, that's entirely optional for the homeowner, and it would be with a private contractor. It's not part of our contracted. It's not part of our contract that the bids were submitted for.
So this does address one of the concerns about the lead pipes, this particular item. But it only goes from the primary line to the property itself. Correct?
To the property itself, correct. Approximately around the sidewalk. From the sidewalk to the home and inside the home would be the homeowner's responsibility, and we would work with any interested homeowner to align the work with their contractor to get that work done.
Alderperson Johnson, and then Hirsch.
Thank you, Your Honor. Brian, so do you have a couple names that you give to people that they call and get estimations about from the sidewalk on?
We certainly don't recommend
Okay,
anyone,
yeah,
but
okay.
we do have a list of names that we know work in the community that we've worked with in the past and who have done satisfactory work at a reasonable price.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alderperson Hirsch.
Thank you. Roddy, just for clarification, in the ordinance, because I'm not familiar with it, it does say that the homeowner is responsible for the 100% of the apron.
Yes.
Do you know why that happened like that?
I think it's a reflection of the fact that it's within the public right-of-way. The public right-of-way is for public purpose. A number of things, whether the street width changes, topography or hydrology changes in the area where you have to change the dynamics of it. Some of the streets that were constructed years ago had what we would call inadequate design. The crown or something might be not appropriate for the conditions under today's standards. Many times it's related to sidewalk ramps, and this is a caveat that I didn't address earlier. All the sidewalk ramps, the corners, those are not assessed. So any work related to any of the radiuses around the corner, that's not assessable. That's considered public purpose, and so those areas are not assessed. But there is certainly areas, I'll use an example. If you paid for everybody's apron, not everybody has the same width apron. You may or may not have to replace all of them. Some of them, in somebody's mind, might be satisfactory, and some of them may not be satisfactory in somebody else's opinion. We try to make this project is a total reconstruction, as I described. This isn't some Band-Aid that we're putting on the street to make it last for another 5 years. This is intention to be a 20-plus year improvement. So the final product is trying to be a total reconstruction. The sidewalks that we replace are the adjacent sidewalks that have defects, but in areas where there is no sidewalks, those, per the policy, those infill areas get infilled at that time. Henry Street, for example, there's a fair amount on Henry Street that there is no sidewalks, or there's sidewalks only on one side. Park Street, another area that's going to have sidewalks on both. So there's these, what we've considered now the new standard that we're bringing these areas up to match. And I think we've heard reflection on sidewalks specifically about discontinuous sections of sidewalk. These street reconstruction projects really try to infill those areas to make it a continuous network of sidewalks as well.
Right, but I guess with respect to the apron, if it's in perfectly good condition, I guess I'm confused unless if you're changing the pitch of the road, the apron is not going to meet the road at a certain, I guess why isn't that like a 50% cost share with the city? Because if they've already put it in and maintained it and we rip it out, it should be a cost share.
We're open to see an ordinance change to that effect. I mean, it is something that comes up annually, and it's never gotten to the point where the ordinance has been changed for that purpose. Again, it's a balancing effort to try to recognize the fact that we're trying to do a complete reconstruction in the neighborhood. What you think is satisfactory might not be satisfactory to the next person. Even if you try to preserve a portion of the apron, you may end up creating a point where you have a car that rubs. You try to save some and you really don't do it justice because you have a double joint essentially to enter into a driveway. So as it's planned right now, they're fully planned to be replaced.
Thank you. Council President Spradley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, this certainly does come up every year, and it's a difficult conversation. I know we had to replace our apron a few years back when we redid North Page Street, so there was an expense, and it hurts. I mean, it hurts everybody, and what makes it challenging is you know, for a homeowner, at some point you have to replace the roof, and you have to, you know, do other improvements to maintain your house, your furnace. Those things, you have a pretty good idea what the lifespan's gonna be when you purchase the home. And when you're doing sidewalks and curb and gutter and sharing the cost, when you purchase a home, you may or may not have any idea when that's due to be done. So it is very difficult to budget for those items. A couple things that I've proposed in the past is, and I think we should look at it again, is I did propose last year to look at the sidewalk ordinance. The sidewalk ordinance says that the goal is to have sidewalks on both sides of every street. Well, that's not even consistent with our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan says we should have sidewalks at both sides of the streets on the main streets. It doesn't say on every street. So I think there's an opportunity to have a discussion to see if it does or does not make sense to have sidewalks on both sides of every street, especially when you're getting in the cul-de-sacs or shorter lengths of roads where there's already a sidewalk that can be utilized on the other side of the street. And the idea to look at the ordinance would give staff and the council an opportunity to have more flexibility when it comes to making individual decisions on projects. And right now, it's kind of challenging to do that because of the way the policy is written. The other concern that I brought up is, and Rodney mentioned a little bit, and I don't understand all the engineering, is I think you said something about the vertical change in the curb.
Yeah.
And that came up last year. And to me, that's something that is changed that I'm not so sure that the homeowner should have to share that cost, because that's something that benefits the stormwater, I believe, more than anything. And if it in fact does, I think that might be something that we could utilize stormwater utility fee to help offset some of the expense for those homeowners that live on them streets. Because, you know, that's something entirely different than just replacing the curb and gutter that's already existing, especially if we're replacing a curb and gutter that's in good condition, other than the fact that we want to make improvements for the stormwater. So I think we should at least look at them two areas, you know, in the next year here. Maybe that's something that Public Works can take a closer look at. The bottom line is if we don't have a shared cost on some of the stuff, especially the sidewalks, that just means we have less resources in order to try to keep our roads in better condition. And we get a lot of feedback about the condition of our roads and the needs for improvement. And we also get a lot of feedback about, as Rodney had said, about having continuous sidewalks and not having gaps where we started on one end of the road and we started on the other end and we don't meet them. So then the idea is to either fill that in or get rid of the sidewalks on the two ends and just go with the sidewalk across the street. So I think there's opportunity for more discussion. Unfortunately, I don't think any of that's going to help any of the people in the room tonight, but hopefully for other homeowners in the future that may be affected, we can at least try to make some improvements. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderperson Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is something that every year we have complaints and, you know, people that are unhappy, of course, because they have to pay per the policy. I guess I got a question for Rodney. You know, and he does make an effort to try to increase and better the communication each year, and I remember specifically talking about it last year. Rodney, if I remember right, some of the information that is put out to the public and the information about their specific locations and their specific sidewalks and whatever needs to be done, is that always an accurate reflection, or is that like a worst case scenario? Now, this may be different because it's a total reconstruction, but I know in other areas where it's not a total reconstruction, that sometimes they pay a lot less than what is actually shown on based on what work has to be done. Maybe you can comment on that, Rodney?
This should be an accurate reflection of what they'd be invoiced.
Okay,
I mean, these estimates were finalized after bids were received.
okay.
So we have the correct numbers. They're not based on estimates from a potential bidder. So I think we have good communications
Okay.
related to that. There was a thought about trying to have a ballpark estimate for properties. I share the concern for the other people. If I give them a $5,000 ballpark estimate and it comes in at, they're going to be upset. And I can't demonstrate whether that's a good estimate or not. All I'm saying is the reflection of past projects. It may or may not be accurate to theirs. So if it's above that, they're going to be very disappointed. They're probably going to already be disappointed it's $5,000. I don't think most of these don't approach 5, so 5 shouldn't have been a good number I just used. But nonetheless, it's disturbing to get an estimated cost that's not as accurate as it can be. So I'm real worried about trying to provide numbers that aren't not based on some real good estimating schematics.
Is that what we had in the past, where it wasn't exactly accurate and then it would change one way or the other?
I don't think they've changed dramatically one way or the other.
Okay.
Again, we had the luxury of having these bids received before we could sent out the final documentation to property owners. Property owners received this information, or was mailed out on mid part of March. And I've fielded calls from people, and I've tried to discuss specifics about their project in all those situations. Many of them were related to trees this year, as a number of you know. So it's not just the cost, it's relating to the entire project and how it fits into their area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderperson Hurst. And I appreciate that you have a question. Right now, we're going to let the council discuss, and then Rodney can always follow up with you independently. That way he can address your personal concerns. Thank you. I'm sorry?
I'm just trying to voice out what most of these people are trying to say.
Sure, our public hearing is done for this evening, so while the council is,
We're just upset.
I understand that, excuse me, the
I
council's,
thought it was a free country.
I'm sorry. The council is deliberating at this time. If the council, excuse me, ma'am. Alderperson Hirsch, you have the floor.
Yes. Thank you. And I understand there's a lot of frustration in this room. I guess my question back to Rodney is, with that situation that I think it was Gregory Lee talked about with his rain garden in that specific area of, I think it's Brixton Street, how, when you put that sidewalk in, how is that going to affect the ice damming and everything? Are we creating a bigger problem by putting in a
No.
sidewalk there?
We are not. Any work that he's referring to that's in the public right-of-way would be affected. The retaining wall that he placed in the past will remain, but the sidewalk would be placed in the public right-of-way. The drainage for the sidewalk and curb and gutter facilitates stormwater movement away from the property.
But what if you want to, I mean, the whole purpose of the rain gutter is actually to keep the water on the property so it doesn't go in, washes away.
And I would suggest that most rain gardens, well, the city hasn't established a rain garden design for public right-of-way at this point, but rain gardens principally are placed on private property. That way they can be maintained as such. And in the public right-of-way, the city, under their guidance, has recognized that as an area that the priority is sidewalks at this point. That's not to say there isn't appropriate rain garden or stormwater management measures that'll be different in those areas in the future, but right now the design does not contemplate anything other than sidewalks at that area.
Can I just follow?
Sure.
Also, I guess, from my own experience, when the city put in a sidewalk, they actually created a nice swale in my sidewalk that retains water and creates a nice ice dam and flooded area every single year and anytime it rains. So how is our estimates, are we making sure that our sidewalks actually don't create a bigger problem for our residents than what was previously there.
Well, certainly when we're doing a total stretch of replacement or brand-new sidewalk, it's much easier to make sure those areas don't have drainage issues. In historic areas or older areas where you're replacing only a spot section of sidewalk, that's oftentimes more difficult to make sure or ensure there isn't going to be standing water for a short period of time. You can appreciate in many of the older districts, the terrace area has been mounded up over years. The soil has developed there and the grass has gotten taller, and the sidewalk might not have even been put in the proper elevation to prevent or to promote positive drainage away from the property. In those situations, we're only removing a tripping hazard. I mean, that's the priority, is trying to minimize tripping, and that's not to dismiss the standing water icing condition, but we certainly try to remove those or correct those at the same time, but it's more difficult if we're only doing a spot replacement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further comments or discussion?
Can I
Alderperson Hirsch.
Can I piggyback on what Alderperson Swiley suggested is, can we actually make a recommendation to Public Works and maybe work with CACP to look at this ordinance within the next 3 months?
Yep.
So we have it in plenty of time for the next letters to go out?
Correct. Yep, I did make a note to send it on to Public Works, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Comments? Alderperson Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. Rodney, question about, I think it came up last year. I didn't quite hear it this year, but don't we have some kind of a mechanism for financial help if people do have a problem paying a substantial bill?
Yeah. The ordinances outline a provision for financial hardship. It was referenced, I believe it's chapter 2-60. But in our ordinances, there is a provision that allows for somebody in that situation to approach the city to work through that process. You do recognize we attempt to try to minimize an annual cost by allowing for deferment over a number of years. But in addition to that, there is a financial hardship provision that could be appropriate in some cases.
Okay, and I would ask any constituents that have more questions to actually talk to Rodney. I mean, he's the expert on this. We have the information, but he has the detailed information more so than the council does. So I would encourage you to check with Rodney with questions.
Yep, absolutely. It can be a frustrating time. Alderperson Boersma.
And I understand, just for utilities, that there is a fund that helps people in need sometimes, and wonder if that might be accessible to people who might have troubles, like with replacing of some of their water system or whatever. Is that a possibility?
We currently don't assess anything for the water and sanitary sewer replacements that we do as part of these projects. The only cost would be if the customer chose to extend their portion. And unfortunately, energy assistance and the existing programs, there's currently no assistance with that. Something that state legislature is considering, I believe actively at the moment, to look for funding options. However, there are none at this time.
This comes up every year for me, and that is I typically am asking the question of Bob, but as I understand it, there is a portion of money that goes into some kind of fund that helps people who are in need when it comes to utilities. And I don't know where that money goes, and I think it's shared throughout the state, but I've always been an advocate for keeping some of that money in Stoughton for direct use of people who need it.
Yep.
That's my position, and it's been my position since I've been on council.
The commitment to community funds is required by state law, and a state law also specifies that 50% must be for low-income bill payment assistance and 50% must be for energy efficiency upgrades. So unfortunately, there's no option for us to use those commitment to community funds for purposes such as this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderperson Hirsch.
One way. Yeah. I guess for the utilities, how many lead pipes are there in Stoughton, and are we now actively replacing them when we dig up roads, that, you know, it doesn't have to be an option, it's actually mandatory?
For the city-owned portion, we've been actively replacing them for every project for at least the past 5 to 10 years, if not longer. As far as an exact count for customer-owned laterals, we don't have any record of that. We're currently collecting that data. For the utility-owned portion of the laterals, again, we have an idea, very rough idea, and it's based on just basically the age of the homes. So if the home was built before 1940 and we haven't done a project on that street, we're assuming it's a lead service.
So at that time, if any of these streets this year meet that criteria, you're going to replace all those lead pipes going into the homes?
We are prohibited from doing any work on that portion of the lateral. We can't fund that work, and we can't perform that work. So the work that we're doing as part of the utility contract here is from the water main to the curb stop, which is in the sidewalk roughly.
So we're not helping our citizens at all get lead from going into their house, into their water system?
We're assisting them how we can. However, we're not assisting them financially because we're currently prohibited by existing state law.
The state law is saying that we can't help our citizens replace lead pipes?
We can't fund, the utility cannot fund it through ratepayer dollars.
But are you letting everybody know that they have this issue?
Yes, everyone who we believe may have a lead service received a letter approximately the same time, I believe late January, early February, stating that there's a likelihood that they have a lead service, and providing them with some basic information on what steps to take to replace it. Ideally, we're encouraging everyone to reach out to us to have that discussion.
So how many people have stepped up saying that they want, out of the number of potential homes that have lead pipes in this project area this year, how many are actually stepping up to replace?
I believe we've heard from less than half a dozen.
So how can we help our citizens encourage them to replace it? Because that's a very serious issue.
We're aware that the state of Wisconsin is looking at, there's a bill forward right now, and Brian can explain it probably better than I, that's talking about making funds available to help citizens pay for the replacement of that lead pipe that goes from the city connection to their home. It would be a revolving loan fund. It's a loan, it's not a grant, so that the monies would be available to the citizen. They would then pay it off over a period of time, and then the money would come back to help the next person pay it off over a period of time. It's been talked about at the Capitol for a bit now. We're hopeful that it moves forward this fall.
But that's not going to help our citizens.
But there are no guarantees right now. Not right now, no. Yep. I'd see Attorney Dragney and then Alderperson Engelberger.
Just briefly on this lead service issue. So under current state law, the city, the utility are absolutely prohibited by law from providing financial assistance to a homeowner to replace that lead service lateral. That's why the legislature is looking at some adjustment to that. There are a number of communities in the state that have adopted ordinances that require homeowners who have lead service laterals to replace those laterals when a street reconstruction project is underway. The challenge, again, then, is that that's another cost for the homeowner. But so it is possible to mandate that. I've seen some efforts at making loan funds available on a loan basis to help that. And the city of Madison actually went through a program that was pretty successful, I think, in replacing all the lead service laterals in Madison. Again, I don't believe they paid for them, but they provided loans to homeowners to facilitate that. But you can see the challenge when you've got a street reconstruction and you've got a bill for several $1,000s for curb and gutter and sidewalk. If you add another few $1,000s for the lead service, I mean, it's just another expense. So it's a tough policy choice for you all in terms of how to solve the problem.
Yeah, but a $2,000 lead replacement pipe versus possibly tens of thousands healthcare costs down the way, it just doesn't make sense.
And that's not a fair, it's not a fair choice to have, people have to make.
No,
I get that. It's
no.
not fair. Alderperson Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to add, I mean, this comes up at utilities, at our meetings, every time we have street openings, and, you know, we encourage the homeowner to make the change. As Brian said, and Bob says, very few people do that, which is unfortunate, but you really need to check inside your house what you got coming in to see. You can also check when they're doing the work on the street and they have the street open, they can tell what type of a lateral you have. And it is expensive, but as Regina has pointed out, it's a health hazard, and hopefully the state of Wisconsin legislature can do something about it. It's something that we, as a council and as a utility, encourage the homeowner to change those out when you have the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Alderperson Engelberger. Further comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll vote by roll call on Resolution 61, 2017. There was a motion to approve by Alderperson O'Connor, second by Alderperson Engelberger. We'll vote by roll.
Swadley?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Reeves?
Aye.
Engelberger?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Truill?
Aye.
O'Connor?
Aye.
Bartlett?
Aye.
Hirsch?
Aye.
10-0.
Thank you. And I want to move to the next item that I know we have folks in the room to talk about, and that is Resolution 63 of 2017. So I would entertain or request your permission to move that ahead on the agenda as well.
Sure.
All right, thank you. So Resolution 63 of 2017 is agenda item number 11 under our new business. This also comes from our Finance Committee. Alderperson O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 63, 2017, approving the request for city participation and contribution to partner with the Stoughton Housing Authority and Faith Communities support rental housing units to address homelessness in Stoughton using the Housing First model. We met tonight at Finance and approved it 4-0. And I so move.
Thank you. There's a motion by O'Connor. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Second by Boersma. Alderperson O'Connor.
This is to participate in a grant for the Fair Housing program, where the city would contribute $15,000 on a one-time basis. It would also give a letter of support. Previous attempts to get this grant were declined, particularly or primarily because of lack of community participation, city participation. So that's why the Finance Committee agreed to go ahead with it. The money would come from
Contingency?
contingency. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments? Alderperson Boersma.
Your Honor, thank you very much. I would like to very, very briefly talk about HATS and the Housing Authority. I'm on the Housing Authority as a representative from the City Council, and I'm also a member of HATS. HATS is a group called the Housing Advocacy Team of Stoughton. It's been working for probably 3 or 4 years, and I haven't been on it quite that long. But we have applied for grants for 3 years to try to get sort of address the issue of homelessness and housing for people who need it. And we've been fairly successful as a group to come up with a really solid model. START is going to be an integral part of this to assist families who are struggling with housing issues to get them stabilized. We recently had a meeting with the Stoughton Public Schools where it was clear that we have probably at any point somewhere around 60 to 70 kids who are affected directly by homelessness. We also have a number of families who are potentially facing homelessness. HATS is a group that tries to intervene in an early way to get people stabilized. We have the backing of a whole bunch of people and who are representatives of HATS, to include the START group, to include clergy, churches, that kind of thing. And we, as a group, really need the blessing, both financially and also in written form, to be able to apply for a grant that's going to be successful. We're really hoping for this year. It's a great preventative program for people, for kids especially, and for families who are in jeopardy, in need of housing, which is one of the most important things that our citizens need. So we are really wanting to get behind this project and in that way help our families as a community in a very direct way.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Alderperson Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would encourage adoption of this resolution. As Sid has stated, the HATS program, which is Housing Advocacy Team of Stoughton, has been working on this for several years. They have put in a few other grant requests for the same money in previous years, and we were denied, mainly because, as Alder O'Connor stated, that the city really didn't have any skin in the game. The city was supportive, but didn't have any financial skin in the game. This is a small amount. It shows them that we are interested in addressing this problem in our city. And Wisconsin Partnership for Housing, Kathy Camp, is writing the grant for us this year, and I think we've learned quite a bit over the last 2 or 3 years in putting this forward, and I think this will get us a long ways towards receiving grant funds and being able to build 4 units of buildings that will be able to address this need in the community. So, and I also want to thank Carl, our Dane County rep on the Dane County board, Carl Chenoweth, who was instrumental in actually getting these funds signed outside of Madison for this purpose. And I appreciate that, Carl. So hopefully we can get this passed and be on our way to addressing a real need in the community here.
Thank you, Michael. Further comments? Alderperson Reeves and then Bartlett.
I was just also going to agree that I think it's a really good investment. In terms of financial, $15,000, as I understand it, is specifically toward the building, but we're really getting a twofer. I would say more than a twofer, because we get the benefit of START. And I think that that's really a small price to pay for, some of the interventions and resources. So I'll be voting in favor.
Thank you. Alderperson Bartlett.
I'm going to support this also. I think it's a good start to addressing some of the homelessness and poverty we have in the area. If we can get the grants, that would be great. And one question I had, I didn't see in the proposal, was where this might be located. Would that be determined after the grant comes? Because I know there's some concerns about consolidating too much low-income housing in certain areas of the city. I just want to make sure, has that been identified, or would that be coming later?
Yeah.
I think Michael or Kathy can help me.
Yeah, I don't believe it's been identified at this point, but that is something that we will take a look at. And, we've had this discussion about housing, low-income housing or affordable housing in different areas of the city, and I think we need to have more of those conversations. But I think that's something we'll take a look at after we get the funds. One other thing, if I could, I just wanted to mention that the grant application also asks for community support outside of the municipality. So community organizations, foundations, those types of things, any of those, we would also be looking for those types of donations from those types of organizations. So we would welcome that, and I really think this is a good cause. So hopefully we can have some interested parties on that also.
Great, thank you. Alderperson Hirsch.
Thank you. I too think this is a very worthwhile and needed project. I'm just kind of concerned that we have to wait so long to actually move ahead. I mean, I'm wondering if people who have been on these committees, is there not an opportunity to like rent apartments in existing buildings around town? But now we have to wait for something to be built and to get grants. It seems like we're pushing the cart further along.
If I could, I'd love to ask your permission. I'd love to have Kathy Camp come up and talk a little bit about the program that she works with. Could you, Kathy? Would you mind? If you could come right to the microphone, we'll need that. Thank you.
In direct answer to your question, HATS is actually submitting two applications to the county, one through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to build the building, and the second to the regular home and CDBG application process, and that would provide immediate tenant-based rental assistance. So those funds would be available to help pay rent in apartments that already exist. So HATS has decided to kind of approach it in a, in sort of two ways. One, to provide more immediate assistance, and two, to do some development that will ensure that the families who are homeless, perhaps they don't have a great credit score, they can't rent in the private market, and so the units that would be developed and that we would hold as landlord would be available to those families who might not be able to access market rate housing.
Sure.
So for a follow-up, I guess clarify that HATS can't rent apartments on a long-term basis to hold it for potential homeless people. You couldn't be the actual kind of tenant, kind of leasee. We have to either build, we can't like either buy something existing or rent something long-term.
I think that generally there are nonprofits, there are groups who do, as you say, where they sign a long-term lease with an apartment, but it's a fairly big financial commitment, and it just turns out to be unwieldy in some respects, because you have one person who's a landlord, you have a person who's renting the apartment, and then you're basically subletting it to someone, and it's a hard model to set up in a community.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
It has been tried in some communities, but it's difficult.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderperson Engelberg.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just was going to kind of address Alder Hirsch's concerns there a little bit. There are a lot of different options on how you can do this. The Housing Authority could buy some buildings and just start doing it. The whole thing about this program is, though, there's a lot of other things involved, such as the services that are provided by START, for instance. There's other things that come into play. And when you're dealing with grant funds and you're dealing with, let's say, WIDA or whatever other entities out there for borrowing money, they all have rules and conditions that you have to follow and all of that type of thing. So there's a whole bunch of different ways we can do it. We've tried different ways with our previous proposals. This particular proposal that Kathy has brought forward to HATS is something that is kind of on a quick path once you get the funds, once you're able to get the grant funding. For instance, the construction in this, for these 4 buildings, would be modular type construction, and they can be built very quickly. So let's say you get the grant funds in August. That starts out the time frame that Kathy has laid out in her proposal to the county, and it's a very quick time period where you'd actually be able to get up and running. So, HATS has done this for the last several years and kind of fine-tune a lot of things. So we're really, hopefully, we're going to be able to get some funds finally and actually put it into motion.
I hope so. Thank you for all your efforts.
Further comments or questions? We'll vote by roll call.
Boersma.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reeves.
Aye.
Engelberger,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Truul,
Aye.
O'Connor,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Hirsch,
Aye.
Swadley.
Aye.
10-0. Passes.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Kathy and Linda. So we will move back to the beginning of new business. And that takes us back to Alderperson Hirsch's request to remove Resolution 62 of 2017 out of our consent agenda. So we'll take that to Alderperson Hirsch.
Thank you. I guess I would make a motion to open up this committee appointment to the public. As much as I like former Alderperson Paul Lawrence, I think this community has a lot of gifted and experienced people that are probably looking for opportunities to become involved in our community, and I would like to see us branch out from our comfort zone of continually putting in the same people in the community in multiple committee appointments. So I guess I would request that, I'd like to make a motion that this appointment be advertised in the hub for the next couple of weeks, and also for all the alderpersons to come up with a list of names for this tree commission appointment by next meeting, and then we can actually start deliberating other potential community people that might be interested in this position.
Okay, and that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Reeves. Comments and discussion? Alderperson Bartlett.
Yeah, I'll support this motion. I think it's a good idea. I like Paul. Paul's actually one of the first people I met in the city when I moved here about 3.5, 4 years ago now. And great, and he's done a lot of service for the city, 19 years on the council, does a lot of work with civic groups. But I would like to see a change of some of the people on these committees. It seems to be the same 20 or 30 people often that gets on these committees just off and on. I know we have a lot of great minds and a lot of wealth of knowledge in this city, and I think people would be more involved if we do reach out to them, so I'll be supporting this.
Further comments or questions? Alderperson Johnson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is there any other vacancies that we have to fill?
There will be 2 on Tree Commission very soon. I understand that there's, I'm sorry, I'm looking around, I'm thinking Brett's going to be here magically. I know that Brett's not in the room. My understanding is that there's another person who will be stepping away.
Okay.
So there will be 2 on the Tree Commission. And I know Alderperson Johnson had sent a recommendation who...
We have someone, right?
Yep, she does. I hear that she does have recommended someone for Tree Commission, and Brett's going to give them a call. Alderperson
Well, that was going
O'Connor.
to be my question for Elder Hirsch, was if there was some interest expressed by somebody that you know of? Or just...
Well, Kathleen had suggested somebody, and this is my field, and I have lots of friends in
well, that's
Stoughton
what I was
that,
interested to know.
would be great on this committee that actually have a background in environmental science or forestry. So I would reach out to them, and other neighbors that had expressed wanting to get involved with different commissions too.
Okay, Alderperson Johnson.
Hi, thank you, Your Honor. I sent you guys all an email of somebody that I know, he was in my neighborhood, and I found out through him coming over to my yard and taking my my mushrooms. He is a fantastic candidate. He's worked in China and knows all kinds of vegetation and is into natural habitat. So I was really excited, and I think we're really lucky to have some of these people that can step up and want to kind of do things a little bit different. So thank you.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
No.
That motion carries with 2 no votes. All right, we'll move then to Resolution 56 of 2017 comes from our Finance Committee. Alderperson O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 56, 2017, a resolution by the Common Council of the City of Stoughton approving the revision of the debt management policy adopted 1999, revised 2008. Finance Committee met tonight and voted to approve it 4-0. I so move adoption.
Second.
Motion by O'Connor, second by Swadley. Alderperson O'Connor.
Finance Director Laborde, as she was preparing for our borrowing, noticed very attentively the restriction of our borrowing limit to be 2.3,
2.32.
and unfortunately, we exceed that. So we need to adjust what our borrowing limit is. At 2.3, it's significantly less than the 5% that is required by the state. Additionally, we voted to amend it to a 4% limit so that we have an opportunity to approve the borrowing that we have and also to review just where we want to place that limit in the future.
Thank you. I'm going to ask,
Go
Council
ahead,
President
go ahead,
Swadley, I was
ma'am.
just going to ask Finance Director Laborde if she would talk to us about this resolution.
Yeah, the resolution basically came about as we were going through the borrowing process. I had located a policy from 1999 that showed that we had a 5% maximum of 5% of our equalized value. That was the maximum amount that could be borrowed. But in talking to our financial advisor, he thought that the number had been lowered. And it did turn out that I did find eventually the 2008 policy where it lowered it to 2.32%. Now, I was able to distribute to everyone today. I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at it. The debt service schedule as it exists, I know it's a lengthy 4 pages, but what it does is it shows all of the debt that the city currently has and when payments are due. And on the very back page, it shows the amounts that we are proposed or you had discussed about borrowing in 2018, 19, 20, and 21, as well as the amount of debt that would fall off. Now, from where we stand with the 2017 approved borrowing, we're at $31,627,000. And to be around the 2.32, we have to be at about 23 million. So there is a difference. And eventually, over time, we're only going to reduce the debt by $96,000 through 2021, but then it will start to fall off as we move forward.
Thank you very much. Council President Swadley, then Boersma and Hirsch.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. So for clarification, did we, on the resolution, did we put 4 or 5% in
You
it?
put 4%.
Is that what we just, was that the motion, was for
Correct.
the 4%? Okay, just wanted to make sure. And the reason I put 4% out there is, you know, it's not really ideal circumstances that we're changing a policy when we've already approved things. It's not really how any of us envision doing business, but unfortunately, during the transition, this was discovered, and fortunately for us, it was discovered by our new finance director, so I'm appreciative of that and the fact that it was immediately brought to our attention. I put 4% out there at finance because that would at least be enough to cover what we've already committed to, and we can continue the discussion about whether or not we want to go to the maximum allowed, which is 5% by the state of Wisconsin.
Thank you. Alderperson Boersma.
Just another question for the finance director, and that would be, if this does not pass, what are the implications?
The implications would be that we'd have to remove approximately $900,000 from what we had proposed to borrow in 2017, as well as the fact that we wouldn't be able to borrow any additional funds until at least 2019, until enough debt would fall off. So that means the Public Works facility would move forward, as well as the anticipated capital improvements projects and borrowing that you had, I don't want to say committed to, but had suggested for going forward into the future, which also includes street reconstruction and repairs.
So the implications are pretty large. Thank you.
Alderperson Hirsch.
Thank you. With the capital improvements that have been, put forward until 2018, and our borrowing for this year, what percentage are we going to be at? And are we bumping up against our limit come 2019 that we're going to be, are we coming too close? Is 4% too close? Or are we going to be going over that in 2019?
As far as my calculations, we would be close to the 4%. We would, at the end of 2021, be at approximately 4.6%. The only factor I haven't allowed for is it's based on your equalized value. So if you assume that it's going to increase every year, that percentage should reduce. But I just didn't have time to calculate what that would be going out until 2021.
So we will be over by 2021. It'll be 4.6 if our cap is 4.
We should be around 4.
Okay. But we're not allowing any other.
No, that would actually allow you to continue forward with what you had planned on doing.
Until 2021.
Until 2021, yes.
But nothing more than that. So no
Nothing
other.
beyond that, as far as I'm aware, you have not discussed those issues as of yet.
Okay.
Thank you. Alderperson O'Connor.
And to that point, we talked about, we just weren't comfortable with raising it to 5 until we had an opportunity to look at the implications and what that actually meant. So it's our intent to go back and look at it, and perhaps we'll be back with an increase sometime in the future.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? Alderperson Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess Alder Hirsch kind of stole my thunder there, but I just wanted to ask about the next year, if it's approved, the Public Works facility. We had a lot of borrowing just for that in there. And I know we had to stay under $10,000 for some other kind of reason. I can't remember what the exact reason was. 10 million. But
Exception.
so the 8 million that's going to be in there for, is that a total in 2018, or is that just with the Public Works facility?
That's an estimate. We don't have the final figures as of yet.
Right, but I mean, what about all the other SIP stuff for 2018? That's not in there, or
No,
it is?
that's actually in your 2017 figures. You combined the street
Okay.
construction for 17 and 18, as well as stormwater and capital equipment.
Okay, that's what we did, so we could
Right. so
put
you
that
could do
larger
the
amount
public
in for
works in it.
2018, okay.
Thank
So
you.
we're good, it sounds like we're okay, be close though.
Right.
Yeah.
Alderperson Burns.
I just have a concern, and that is if you're talking about 4.6 in a number of years, and we're going to have to take it back and do this again, I guess I'd like to present an amendment, and that is that based on what you're talking about right now, is that we go up to 4.5 instead of 4. Right?
Well, you could do that. I think right now, though, Finance had discussed the possibility of, redoing the policy. I'm fine if you want to wait until that's taken care of.
Okay, I'd like to propose the amendment to go to 4.5, so we don't have to bring it back again.
There's amendment to the motion by Alderperson Boersma to increase that, the debt percentage. Am I saying that right, Tammy?
Direct debt burden ratio.
The direct debt burden ratio to 4.6? 4.5. There she goes, just trying to keep it going, right? 4.5. It was a good try. It didn't work. 4.5 by Alderperson Boersma. Is there a second to that motion?
Sure.
I'm not sure where
I don't want to steal his thunder, so he can have it.
Twice as stolen once.
And a second by Engelberger. Comments or discussion about 4.5? Council President Swedler.
Thank you, Your Honor. I certainly appreciate the amendment. I'm not going to support it, and the reason is because I really would like us to make a better effort this year of getting the committee recommendations to do the work for us. That's something that we talked about at the last session, and I think this is one of them things that really the committee should dig into it, and they may come back and say 4.5 is the magic number, but I think that we should do a little bit more homework before we get to that point. We have enough to cover for the next couple of years, so there isn't an immediate need to go any higher. So I guess that's where I'm at.
Further comments or discussion? Alderperson Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess I would just have a question for Tammy, Finance Director. What's the upside and downside of getting close to the 5% that's allowed by state law?
Well, ultimately, the downside is that you're increasing your debt service and thereby potentially increasing your debt service. However, they are wrapping it around to maintain the levy at a static level so that there aren't huge increases. I know that next year there's going to be an increase, and then thereby a portion of it will come from at the tax rate. So the tax rate will increase slightly, or it could increase slightly. It all depends on our growth.
And I guess my other question would be, you know, we've seen the legislature in recent years pull things away from local communities. And what's to say that they're not going to, you know, make another change to the law that says you can't do this or you can't do that, and further lessen what we can actually do on a local level?
And right now, that is one of your only ways around, I don't want to say around the levy, but to be able to accomplish the projects that need to be done in the community that you've identified. That is the only way, except for going to referendum. That's always an option too, but that's a lot harder. And then you're increasing your levy a large amount.
Thank you. Alderperson Boersma.
My point is also that we don't have to borrow. We don't have to borrow at that level. I mean, we just have a cushion. That's why I presented the amendments.
Thank you. Alderperson Reeves.
I would agree with President Swadley, just partly because I'm on the Finance Committee, so I'm more comfortable with knowing that this is going to be addressed, but I'm also not comfortable with arbitrary. So if I know that this is something that we're going to be taking up under committee and that we'll be reporting back and explaining the whys before we make a decision, I would be comfortable with going with the original resolution. So.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no further comments, we'll be voting first on the amendment. It was a motion to amend by Alderperson Boersma, second by Alderperson Engelberger, to raise the, I keep saying it wrong, Tammy.
It's okay. The direct debt burden ratio.
The direct debt burden ratio to 4.5%. And we'll vote by roll call.
Swadley?
No.
Boersma?
Aye.
Johnson?
No.
Reeves?
No.
Engelberger?
Aye.
Jensen?
No.
Truill?
No.
O'Connor?
No.
Bartlett?
Aye.
Hirsch?
No.
Motion fails 3-7.
Takes us back to our original motion on Resolution 56, 2017, which would allow our direct debt burden ratio, I'm going to say that 10 times and I'll get it right, to raise that to 4%. Further comments or discussion on the original motion? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll.
Swadley?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Reeves?
Aye.
Engelberger?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Truill?
Aye.
O'Connor?
Aye.
Bartlett?
Aye.
Hirsch?
Aye.
Passes 10-0.
That motion carries. Agenda item 7 under new business is Resolution 57 of 2017. This comes from our Finance Committee. Alderperson O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 57, 2017, resolution by the Common Council of the City of Stoughton approving the concept to enter into a long-term agreement to use the building and generate power at 601 South 4th Street, formerly the Powerhouse. Finance Committee adopted a motion to reject the proposal 5-0, and I so move.
Motion by
Second.
O'Connor, second by Engelberger. Commissioner O'Connor.
Yeah, the city was approached by a company in Iowa, I think.
In Wisconsin, but they do power generation in Iowa.
Okay, wanting to generate power here, or at least look into it. The committee thought that with the proximity to the development that hopefully will go on there, that it would be not in our interest, and so Finance Committee voted to reject it.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Council President Swadley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think if you read through the proposal, you'll see that it was pretty one-sided toward those that approached us. And so, I don't support that. So the way this is written is in the affirmative, right? Is that how you read that?
Yes.
So you would vote yes in order to go forward with allowing them to do this, and you would vote no if you didn't want them to do that. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Alderperson Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would encourage everybody to vote no. I'm going to vote no, and I just don't think it's a good idea at this point for what we have under development down there.
Thank you. Alderperson Hirsch.
I think, well, I'll steal Scott's thunder because I know what he was going to say. Well, I think the reason is that this is part of the RDA RFP that went out for that whole riverfront redevelopment. So I know that it came upon the city and we had to address it, but I really would encourage everybody to vote no so that the ideas that the master planner has for the redevelopment of the riverfront can go forward with some really unique and cool things for that building.
Thank you. Alderperson Truul, and then Boersma.
No need to comment.
All right. Alderperson Boersma.
I think if this would pass in the affirmative, that it would tie our hands as a city for what we do with that property, and so I'm going to be voting no.
All right, thank you. Further comments or questions? All right, remember the vote in the affirmative allows it to move forward. A vote in the negative says that we don't wish to move forward with this proposal. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no.
No.
That motion fails. Agenda number 8, Resolution 58 of 2017, comes from our Utilities Committee. Alderperson Jensen.
So I gotta find it here. There we go. Okay, as Resolution 58, 2017, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve the city utility billing statement, message, and insert policy, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Jensen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Engelberger. Alderperson Jensen.
Yeah, this is a policy that was set up by the Utilities Committee for any kind of inserts that the city would like to put in, informational inserts. It's a policy that's been reviewed by the CACP Committee, and we would encourage you to approve the policy.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Alderperson Hirsch.
I guess I have a question because this is for the utilities when you actually send out the bills. Myself, like a number of citizens, actually receive their bill via email. So if there's information, and how are the citizens who actually do paperless billing actually getting this information?
On the emails that are sent, there's a brief summary of whatever would be enclosed as the billing insert, as well as a link, click here to view the insert. And then clicking that clicking that link in the email would take you directly to a PDF version of the insert, or one or more inserts, however many there would be. It would take you to a PDF version.
Okay, thank you.
Alderperson Johnson.
Hi. I was on the committee prior, and when this discussion came up, we actually asked Brian because they had done some prior. And Brian, were you saying that it was, you do 8,000 mailers out or bills out?
Physical bills, I believe, are approximately 7,400.
Okay.
And then we have about another 1,000 to 1,200 customer or accounts that are email, paperless bills.
And then that time we asked you how your response was, and you said you got like one back or a couple back?
We've had mixed success. Generally, we'll mail out 8,800 bills. If we're seeking a program sign up, we may get one or two responses. Our current mailings have been for bill credit incentives for either smart thermostats or Energy Star appliances. Can't say the exact number, maybe a dozen that we've heard back who have acted on that incentive at this time.
Okay. So with that, I would be voting no because it just doesn't work. So,
I want to just clarify so that, you know, we're all on the same page. When
Am
we
I
talked
confused?
about it, CACP is having the city be allowed to put a stuffer in the utilities billing.
Yep.
And that's where we had discussed, you know, what is the success rate of that. And this is a policy where the utilities chooses to use stuffers or not. This is how they would go forward with their policy, just to clarify, to be sure.
okay, so that's different than
It's
what
a
I
little
was thinking.
different. Yes,
Got
I
it.
think
Thank
so.
you.
I think
Thank
so,
you, thank you,
yes.
thank you. Okay.
Alderperson, I'm sorry, Council President Swadley and Alderperson Bartlett.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, the CACP did have a discussion. I don't believe, Greg, we actually made a decision to go forward on anything at this point.
I believe it's on the agenda, future agenda item
So-
for the CACP to discuss whether you want to go forward with it or not.
Exactly. So the idea would be if we were to go forward, which we haven't made that decision yet, or any other group wanted to go forward, there would at least be some guidelines outlined in this policy on what would be allowed and what would not be allowed. And my understanding is some of it is the policy is really dictated not by us, but by the governing body of the utilities. Is that correct?
Yes, the policy is kind of two parts. Half of the policy kind of addresses for the utility what we would do. The other half addresses for outside non-utility funded inserts, what their costs would be, what the expectations and requirements would be, what type of content would be allowed. So it's half the policy addresses what's currently being done day to day, month to month within the utilities. The other half addresses potential opportunities for the city and provides a pathway for them to know what they could be getting into should other departments choose to pursue this.
Thank you. Alderperson Bartlett.
Not much to add. I was on the CACP and the Utilities Committee also, and I'll support this. This is just a policy if we want to do this at some point. We still need to develop a city policy on our standards for it, and if we want to do a test run, or how often, or what we want to put in these. We'll say Assistant Director Hoops provided me with samples of some of the flyers that they have sent out, and they're very well done, because there was one question about the professional statement in there. Just to show an example, they need to be professionally done. If anyone wants to see those, they can look at those, but I'll be supporting this, just to give us that option in the future if you want to do a test run or see how well this would work.
Sure, thank you. Further comments, Alderperson Boersma.
If there, Brian, thank you. If there was more opportunity to use email stuff, would you save a lot of money?
Yes, definitely. We're currently expanding our email list for marketing purposes. Currently, we have an email list for customers who have opted in for paperless billing, and that's all. So we're creating an email list for customers who opt in for these additional marketing materials. I believe the city is also going to be looking into that as well, because, yeah, it has a significant cost savings to avoid the paper consumables.
How many of these? How many times do you do this? Get some of these on.
For our inserts, we try to keep them minimal. I'd say 6 to 7 times a year.
Yeah.
And
If you multiply that times, I would assume low-cost postage, it's a lot of money. I haven't figured it out. I was going to do it, but it's thousands of dollars.
oh, easily, yes.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. This motion carries. Resolution 59 of 2017 comes from our Planning Commission. Alderperson Truul.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Planning Commission brings forth Resolution 59-2017, approving a certified survey map for the property located at 1399 U.S. Highway 51. This is for the Aldi's food store, and I would recommend adoption.
Second.
There's a motion by Truul, second by Engelberger. You're talking so quiet.
Yeah.
I know.
Been singing too much lately.
Have you? All right then. Alderperson Truill.
Thank you, Your Honor. What this does, you may recall this had come, we've seen a number of plans that have come forward from the Aldi's. This specifically cleans up a 33-foot easement, access easement that would have been there for the purposes of a future Jackson Street right-of-way that is no longer necessary. So that's why we're finalizing it.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Alderperson Hirsch.
Can you just, maybe Rodney can put it up, can you just clarify where the in and out will be? It's, I guess I can't read these maps efficiently.
This map doesn't show the in and outs, but I'll pull it up on the screen. Sorry. How can I get there?
Alta survey is in the packet, Rodney.
It is,
Yeah.
but I'm just, I guess it's
But
just
the
like an
Alta
arrow.
survey- The Alta survey probably doesn't do it justice as to where the access for Aldi's will be. Access for Aldi's is approved as part of their site plan, will be on the south side, directly opposite where Kettle Park Way comes into Jackson Street. So there'll be an access point approximately here. The other access point is up on Haltz Road at this point. There's nothing in this curve area here for connection to their site.
So that curve is going away?
No, this curve is already constructed. This is the street, this is the Jackson Street, and this is the property line. But there is no driveway connection to the Aldi's facility in that curve area. As I indicated, there's one up in the northern part of Haltz Road on their property edge, and then another one opposite of Kettle Park Way, approximately in this location. The principal reason for this CSM was to remove, in their minds, they're removing this note of this preservation of a right-of-way. That right-of-way doesn't go anyplace, and looks like it was created with the town of Rutland years ago when and even before this building was constructed here. This building is the former Kaiser building, auto sales lot building that still remains there, but will come down as part of the Aldi's project.
So where would the Aldi's building actually be?
I guess I should have brought the map.
I mean, it's just,
On the last page.
The actual site map for Aldi's?
So, yeah.
Okay, just 1 second.
Have it.
you gotta like go way, yeah.
It's just the Alta.
No,
So
that's
it's
the
not-
Alta survey.
That's
what
the
I
Alta
said.
survey.
That's what,
No.
That's the Alta survey of the existing facility.
But it does show the driveway.
The LD site plan has the building positioned approximately in this portion of the site.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to make sure that we're not creating any jams.
Okay.
Any additional comments or questions?
I've got one.
Alderperson Johnson.
And this is a question, and I don't even know, Rodney, if you are knowing this, but it seems like the exit out on the south is pretty close to the curve there. That, does it have to be, well, it probably has, you probably want it across from the other
Yeah.
street there
Yeah,
to make sense.
That's
Okay.
correct. There's a direct connection to the Kettle Park West.
Okay.
There is an exit for their trucks to exit out of the very western part of this area, but for their vehicular traffic in and out onto Jackson will be opposite of Kettle Park Way.
I was just concerned that it seemed pretty tight with the curve there going around, that I just don't know if it's going to be more obscured for them when they're kind of going out a little bit, that people are, when you're taking a right or taking a left, they're going to be a little bit behind. You're not going to, they're going to be a little bit behind you.
That was the one that was identified even when we were looking at how to create this parcel. Council members might recall, there was a previous option when this was maybe going to be the home of a Quick Trip or another facility where this was going to become two parcels. That position was strategically positioned directly opposite of Kettle Park Way for that very purpose.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We've addressed Resolution 61 previously. Resolution 63 previously. Takes us to Agenda Item 12. Council President Swadley.
Thank you, Your Honor. In your packet, I included an outline of what we could potentially do as far as establishing goals for the City Council for this next session here. And what I'm looking for tonight is some feedback on whether or not the council would like to go forward. And if they do, what I'm recommending is that each council member would submit some ideas to the clerk, and then the clerk would bring them to the CACP meeting. The next meeting is May 2nd, which doesn't give us a lot of turnaround. So if we can't have all the ideas submitted by then, we can certainly extend that into June and spend the May meeting just kind of talking about process and how that committee might potentially put these goals together. The purpose is outlined in the document in your packet. The idea then would be once the ideas would be submitted, basically the committee would rank them and maybe start out with the top 5, consolidate those that are similar, put them in a SMART goal format, which I basically have on the document, which would mean that the goals would be specific, measurable, we could attain them, they'd be realistic, and they'd have a time on them as far as when they need to be completed. We could bring those top 5 or top 10 or whatever the council wants to do, or maybe have 2 sets of goals, the first 5, and then have a secondary set if we feel that we're going to be able to accomplish the first 5 in an efficient timetable. I'll bring them back to the council. I'm thinking sometime in June to have the council approve them. So having said that, I would just open it up. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on it. I just need to know whether or not folks want to go forward with it.
Alderperson Boersma.
I would like to go forward with it, and I wondered who would facilitate that meeting?
The CACP, we haven't reorganized yet, so we would organize it there, and then we would bring a recommendation back to the council if that's what you would choose.
Alderperson Reeves.
This is a really silly question, but I don't see it on the calendar, so it's May 2nd. Is it, I'm not seeing the time or location yet.
For the reorganizational meeting?
Yeah.
Typically, they're on the first Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock. 6 o'clock, from 6 to 6 o'clock. And I'm thinking at that first meeting would be the reorganizational meeting, so I don't know how deep we would get into the conversation. And Greg has been the chair of that committee, so if you'd like to speak to that, I'd certainly welcome his input.
Yeah, don't mind. Yeah, it has been the first Tuesday, but the last few we had it on Thursday. I can't remember exactly why we changed it, but
that would be me.
Yeah,
to accommodate my schedule.
So
which
to accommodate your schedule, we put it Thursday. So I'm assuming then that the first one for the reorg will be on the first Thursday of the month.
Tuesdays when Lana's available.
Yeah.
Is that what?
Lana's not available on Thursdays, so the reorg, at this point, the CACP committee is now, Lana is looking at the first Tuesday of the month.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, so I'm going to make sure I'm here next Tuesday for the reorg and then see where we want to go on this. I'll also make a request next Tuesday, since I'm still on the committee, to have future meetings on the first Thursday, and hopefully the rest of the members of that committee that will work with their schedule.
And I intend to be there too, so that I can usher it along into the new era.
Thank you. Further comments or questions?
So
Otherwise,
I guess I'll move to go forward with this as outlined, and we'll see where it takes us.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Council President Swadley, second by Alderperson Jensen, to move forward with a recommendation that you make the motion, and I'll write it down.
Okay. The recommendation would be for the city council to establish goals for 2017, 2018 session.
All right, comments or questions on the motion as stated? Council
So
President Swedman.
just to give you an example of what a goal would sound like, here's an example. The CACP committee will establish SMART goals for the city council to consider by June 13th of 2017. That's basically what an end product could look like. So what it is the specific part of that would be to establish the goal. The measurable part would be whether it got accomplished or not. The attainable would be, you know, is it something we can do? Yes or no? I'm guessing we can. The realistic, is it realistic for us to do that? That's usually where the timetable, which is the last component, comes in, is usually there's a question on when it can be accomplished by. So that's kind of the process. We did this one year, I was on the school board, and it worked pretty well, although we tried to do them at a regular school board meeting, and it wasn't very efficient when we had that large of a group. So that's why I suggested to do it at CACP based on the feedback I received from Scott and from Greg.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions or comments? Alderperson
I
Borsman.
do. Would like a goal be that we, when we do a project or whatever, that we do smart growth, or I'm just wondering what you're anticipating us coming up with.
Well, it could be, we want to establish a new policy by such and such date, or update an existing policy, or update an existing procedure or a process or an ordinance. So what I would ask everyone to do is think about all the things that we've been talking about the last few years, things that you think we could do better, and jot them ideas out, and then you would submit them to Lana, and she would bring them to the committee.
So it could be a fairly wide-ranging thing, or it could be very specific.
Right.
That we need a change in an ordinance on such and such a, whatever.
Whatever you want to do, we bring it to the group, and the group tries to wordsmith it and get it down to a couple sentences, and bring it back for the council to consider.
Alderperson Truill.
As a very specific one, and specifically what Tim was referencing, as you know, I was frustrated with, and I think we've continued to have some frustrations over citizen appointees.
Yeah.
So we may want to, my suggestion, one of the topics will be talking about our whole appointment process. So we create a policy that perhaps 45 days before the terms are up, we solicit, council folks have a chance to solicit and propose people or something like that. Mm-hmm. So just the idea that you kind of keep that as maybe as a sample, and then we could go all over the place, and we could talk about other policies or things like that. But specifically in terms of what Tim had indicated, he had reached back out to Greg and I about, we were talking about our concerns about the citizen appointment process.
And then presumably, I'm just talking to you, just presumably, there might be a number of us with exactly the same goals. Absolutely. We could sort of rank those and say, we have 5 people who want the same thing, and sort of make it concise and a wordsmith it to make it look like it's at least similar for all of us, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and again, not to speak for Tim, but again, since you're addressing me, my belief on this is, as a new member, again, being reappointed back to CACP, it's just a good forum for us to be able to take those kinds of things up away from these meetings, and to be able to again, create that agenda, and provide us with a non-confrontational situation where we can talk about some of the goals that we're looking for and decide what actions need to happen, and then can direct appropriate city staff if we're talking about changing policies or guidelines and the like, and then bring it back to us. So I commend Tim for suggesting this, because I think it is important. I think that's one of the things that we haven't perhaps done a great job of, and that's given council folks a chance to help kind of plant the flag as to where we want to go each term. What do we want to try and accomplish? And I think this is a good way to get all of our input. So I encourage you to do it.
Thank you. All right. See no additional comments. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next is Resolution 60 of 2017. It is the council's prerogative at this point to move into closed session or to continue in open. As such, I could entertain a motion to move into closed session. Alderperson Boersma?
Okay, I move to move into closed session. The council is allowed to do this based on State Statute 19.85, considering employment and compensation of the City of Stoughton Media Information Technology Director. The council will then convene an open session after that.
I'm sorry, my ear is hurting tonight, so I'm not hearing very well.
Okay, I'm just moving
Just
for
reading what
going
it
into
says,
closed session.
okay. Good enough, thank you.
Second.
Is there a second? Second by Truul. We'll vote by roll call to go into closed
Just a
session.
quick question.
Mhm.
So, is there a specific reason why we have to go into closed session? And I guess this would be directed at Attorney Dragney, or?
You're allowed to do that when you're discussing whether to hire a specific person. You're not required to, so it's entirely up to the council whether you feel it's appropriate or not.
And that's what I threw out to the group to decide.
I will say that we're expecting that the actual vote on the decision would be done in open session, for sure. But you can discuss it in closed session if you feel that's appropriate.
Alderperson Jensen?
I don't see a need to go into closed session for this, so I'll vote no.
No worries. We do have a motion on the floor. Was there a second to that motion, Sid?
I second it.
Thank you, Scott. I didn't write that down. There's a motion and a second to go into closed. We'll vote by roll, and certainly Alderperson Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to vote no at this point, too. I believe we can go into closed session if we need to.
Sure.
Even after some discussion, but I don't know that we need to at this point.
Okay. Well, let's vote by roll. It can either be affirmed or denied, and we'll move from there.
Johnson?
No.
Reeves?
No.
Engelberger?
No.
Jensen?
Nope.
Truul?
Nope.
O'Connor?
Aye.
Bartlett?
No.
Hirsch?
No.
Swadley?
No.
Boersma?
Aye.
2 to 8 fails.
All right, thank you. So I will go back I was going to hand it over to the Personnel Committee, and Alderperson Majewski is our new chair. Alderperson O'Connor is our vice chair. Who's our vice chair? Me. Thank you. I couldn't remember. Alderperson Johnson. All right, we'll hand it to Alderperson Johnson.
I so move forward, right? Authorizing, of R60, 2017, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve the appointment of the hiring of the city Stoughton IT Media Information Technology Director, salary at $78,728.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion by Johnson, second by O'Connor. Alderperson Johnson.
This process started before the committee had changed over. So AJ presented the information of this application, and she came from a industry out, not actually in the city slash, it was more in the private sector. And one of my concerns was that she had responsibility as actually starting up multiple areas, and she did and was quite successful at it. I think she has been in the industry and doing quite well for a number of years, so she has a lot of experience behind her. She's not from the area. She's moving up here for personal reasons, and she is somebody that is actually, from what I get and from what we were told, she was very actually overqualified, and she's kind of interested in going into the city doing IT. So. And then Pat, I'm going to refer to Pat because he's an IT man and was part of the...
No, I'm not.
No.
Don't label me that.
Alderperson O'Connor.
Yeah, I said on all 4 of the interviews, we did 4, I think. And, I mean, one of the things I liked best about her was her management experience, her organizational experience, her hands-on experience from the very base level and really expanding where she was at. I think she'll be a tremendous benefit to the city, and I'm wholeheartedly endorse her for a position.
Thank you. Alderperson Hirsch.
I thought her resume was outstanding. I just have a question of why she left her last position and why she's...
She became engaged,
Okay.
and her fiance lives up here in Madison. Therefore, she left her position, came up here, took 10 months off. She kind of told us a neat story about how she's kind of dipped her toe in the retirement realm, and not at all what she wants to do, but she took that opportunity to take 10 months and actually do the traveling and things that you would typically do at the age of retirement. And that's not where she's at, but she said she spent 10 months doing it. It's out of her system. She's ready to get back into the workplace, very interested in government. When we looked at her in regards to qualifications, she meets all of the required qualifications and has passed a very thorough background that was conducted by our police department, has also passed her drug screen and any other contingencies that we set forth. I concur with Pat O'Connor in regards to personality, her experience, her management experience, her willing to do the boots to the ground. She's the type of person who is more than willing to wire a computer herself, be crawling down around on the ground. Also work with she gave an example of working with the help desk that was looking for a new implementation of a system for the nurses at the last facility she worked at. So she said the best way to learn about that would be to actually work third shift and experience what they did. And that hands-on is exactly what we were looking for in our person, is someone who's willing to do exactly what it takes and understand the processes and make those recommendations. So I think her consulting experience coupled with her management experience, her education, her background makes her the perfect fit for us. This is the most excited I've been over any of the candidates, even the one that we extended to previously. She's got the personality, and I think will mesh very well with the team, but she also has that education and experience.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Swadley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I want to start out by commending AJ and the team that was involved in this process. The job description is awesome. I mean, it's everything. I was looking for things, and you know how I get, and it was very thorough, and I appreciate that. So thank you for that. You know, my biggest question is, there's so much to do. How are you going to prioritize where she starts? And I don't know if you've begun that discussion.
We actually have. Just to back up a little bit, just so everybody understands our vet-out process, we had an initial panel which was involving Pat O'Connor and several other stakeholders in the IT area that are affected by it. Chief Leck and Lieutenant Conlon were also involved in that. Then we brought in an expert panel on top of our standard panel and involved a gentleman from JCOM that we've used as a consultant. We also brought in a gentleman that heads up the consortium for the police because of the police involvement, as well as the IT director in Middleton, who was tasked with the same thing that we're expecting our new IT director, media services person, to do. And setting up that relationship that Sneha Patel, that's the individual that we're looking at, that she would be able to connect with the city of Middleton. They had the same type of lofty list. We definitely talked with her in regards to position expectations. We had her also come in and meet with the leadership team. And we were all given the opportunity to explain to her kind of what our expectations were, not in depth, but high level. So then when she gets hired, what the plan is that she's going to take the first 90 days to work within each of the departments, understand where our pain points are, that she's going to get back together with the mayor and at that point start prioritizing what needs to be done and have that collaboration taking place so we can try to bring down the silos that we currently have. For example, I'm using an HR system, but Chief Leck may have a different HR system, so why are we running on two different ones? So she's going to hit that low-hanging fruit first, knock off those items on her to-do list, and then start working on the bigger projects. But that'll work directly with her and who she's directly reporting to, which is the mayor. But I would expect to see from her a deliverable of, here's what I identified in each of those departments, and that we talk about that.
I just wanted to point out that she won't be working alone. You know, Derek Westby is already in our media services department and doing a great job. He does a lot of the boots on the ground things already, so the two of them will form a really great team moving forward. Alderperson Johnson.
This is not on the appointment, but I have a question. When she figures out that we need something within our system, and it's going to maybe cost money, I just wanted to bring that up, that,
Sure.
you know, she's going to say, we need to get rid of these older computers, blah, blah, blah. So I just putting it out there.
The same as any other leadership number. Same thing when I came in TAS. It was brand new department, starting out, didn't exist before, so there's definitely needs. So what I would expect is that she goes through that budgetary process. If there's pinch points that we have to address immediately, that would be something that's taken up with the mayor and with Tammy, and discussions would take place to determine and prioritize.
Okay.
First of all, identifying if there's dollars available.
Yep.
And then determine is there a Band-Aid we can put on in the meantime? Is it something that we're hemorrhaging? Or is it something that can be a fix through the budgetary process? But I would wholeheartedly expect her to come up with some expenses that the city's going to need to look at least consider.
And if you remember in our budget for 2017, we did account for a little extra cash in there because we knew it was we didn't know. You know, you think it might. Alderperson O'Connor.
And in her interview, she responded to that pretty directly in that, you know, I can tell you what you need, but you have to be the ones that authorize it, and I can tell you what the impacts can or could be based on those decisions, and especially as it relates to things like security. And
I think that ties into her consulting background. I think that's why she's such a viable candidate for us, is that she's had that peak on the outside as the consultant, but then also has migrated into the business itself where she was consulting. So if you notice on her resume, she had 15 years with I think it's called Coventry, but then 3 years prior to that, she was actually acting as their consultant, redesigning their IT infrastructure. So again, I think Donna had pointed out that she's overqualified, but brings a heck of a lot to the table, and has already talked about the importance of partnering with, obviously, Derek, Rodney, and the other stakeholders that would be involved.
Thank you. Alderperson Truul.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to echo Alderman Swadley's comments. I appreciated this process, and I appreciate that you gave us a little more information on the front end in this important hire. So I encourage you to continue to do that as we move forward and have opportunities to bring other people in, because it did give us a chance to do a little background if we chose to as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderperson Boersma.
Yeah, just a couple of points. One is I've always had concern about this is a big, huge job, and that we should look at hiring, but we should also look at support. That's why I had said earlier I think we need a little bigger process of people who can be involved with IT. So I'd be concerned about support. The second thing is that the reason why I presented for closed session was because we're talking about personal issues, and anytime we do that, I get a little bit nervous and concerned about that, like her marital status or whatever. I mean, that's just not something that I like to do in open session. And then I guess I would say that I think we need an IT person, and I think part of this might be to ultimately save some money. And one of my questions earlier tonight was of utilities as to how much money they're spending on that issue of sending out postage rather than through internet things. So I would just be asking AJ if she's also going to be part of the utilities part of this whole thing.
We had a discussion, I'm looking specifically at Alderperson Bartlett, but we had a discussion at our last personnel meeting that we had in regards to this position to look at incorporation and more integration between the two entities, or department and the city. So we've definitely started those discussions. I can't commit to anything. Obviously, that would be more at a level here or with the mayor, but we did have the discussions, and unfortunately, we weren't at that meeting. But we had started the discussions. Madison, would you like to add?
No, you put it pretty well. We just started the discussion, so still a lot of talk to be had with the utilities and everyone involved. So
I just think that we should. I think we should utilize her in all aspects of our city if we're going to have an IT person that's working directly with non-utilities. We should have her involved in utilities as well.
Thank you. Comments or discussion? All right, we do need to be sure that we have the motion that includes her name. That way, going forward, she's been officially appointed. And I lost my spot. We have a motion by Johnson to approve Resolution 60 of 2017, which does everything but that. It doesn't have her name in the resolution.
Can we amend that, Mayor?
I'm looking at Alderperson Johnson and
gonna-
O'Connor, if you're comfortable with amending to
Yes,
include her name.
please. To amend, am I supposed to say? I don't know how to pronounce her name. Sneha Patel.
Okay, and is there okay, so there's a friendly amendment?
It's a friendly, yeah. You
Okay, we don't need to amend.
Becomes the
We'll
amendment.
just do a friendly amendment to include Shneha. I will learn that one. Shneha's name in the resolution itself. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Jensen,
Second.
I'm in the seat, aren't I?
second
You
by
are in the
Johnson.
seat.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.